Welcome to Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains. Today we have a Superstition Mountain rescue story from Maricopa County Sheriff Clint Bradshaw.
Well, thank you, Larry. Thank you for having me here today, guys. Yeah, like he said, I'm a deputy with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and I've had the great opportunity of working in our Lake Patrol division for many years now, and part of Maricopa County encompasses much of the Superstition Mountain range. The Superstitions themselves are in Pinell County, but the county line is just a little bit to the north there. So if you're familiar with the First Water Trailhead, the Needle Vista, Willow Springs, Olive Canyon Lake, Olive Apache Lake, all of that area is in Maricopa County, and I've had the opportunity of being up there and working up there, and as a deputy sheriff, obviously I've seen quite a lot of things and in the mountains, and had a lot of fun experiences. Most of them have been to do with rescuing lost hikers, rescuing people that are out there in distress, or a hiker that has sprained their ankle, and a lot of them, of course, were looking for gold. They were, that's part of the mystique of what they were out there doing, and I always like to kind of talk to those guys too and be like, get their insights on where they think the Lost Dutchman mine is or stuff like that, and a lot of them have been pretty fun to talk to and stuff. About 5 or 6 years ago, I had a pretty fun experience. This is one of when I tell this story, I kind of look at it as it was one of the funnest rescues or funnest calls for service that I ever had as a deputy sheriff, and that's because I love horses. I work with our mounted unit and have for many years, and we ride horses to patrol with, and I grew up in Idaho and around horses and on a ranch and stuff, and so I've just always liked horses and animals, and that's always been a part of my life. So let's see, probably 5, 6 years ago, we had gotten a call of a lady that was out recreationally. They were out riding their horses in the Superstition area. They were kind of around off of Highway 88 and the Needle Vista. If you know where that is, it's about milepost 203 and a half or so, around there, and they were in that area, and somehow the story was that the horse had bucked her off, and the horse had gotten away from her, was what I heard. So, and the horse had been missing for several days. Well, then after several days, she obviously was worried about the horse. They had called us. I hadn't been involved until this day, but on this day, a hiker was hiking through the First Water Canyon, which is a very rugged canyon that basically runs from the Superstitions in the First Water area all the way north to Canyon Lake. And in fact, if you're familiar with Canyon Lake, when you cross the first bridge, that's the First Water Bridge. So if you were to follow that canyon up, that's the canyon or the draw that this horse was in. So a hiker had seen the horse in there and actually taken some video of it with his cell phone. And he was all like, it was kind of funny because I don't know if he thought it was a ghost or something, because he was like, I see something out here and it scares me to death. And I remember watching the little video he had taken on his cell phone. Basically, he had found this horse, and the horse was still saddled and had been up there for 2 or 3 days. Now this is in the winter time too, so there was tons of water in the wash and there was lots of grass. So the horse was in pretty good shape, but obviously was lost. So the call came out over the radio, and we were kind of listening. And I was actually working down on the river, down on the Salt River at the time, and basically got the call from my commander that said, hey, because I was part of the mounted unit, saddle up some of our horses and take them up there and see if we can assist in helping this lady get her horse back. And so I was totally game and excited. So we grabbed 2 of our best horses and we saddled them up, threw them in the trailer, and headed on up there. And when we get up there, and I met the owner, the lady. She was there, and of course she was, she was still a little distraught because she was missing her horse and stuff. And then we met the hiker, and he showed us the video, and he kind of described the area where it was, and also our helicopter had arrived. So the sheriff's office, and I just give a shout out, our aviation unit is top notch. We have some of the greatest pilots, and we have some of the greatest helicopters in the state, and they just do a fantastic job. They've saved so many lives and rescued so many people. They're just fabulous. So they had arrived. So somehow, you know, they're commanders. So this had gone pretty high up in the sheriff's office, and come back down to say, hey, let's help this lady out. You know, let's put some resources into it. You know, and we understand it's, you know, I guess some people might say, well, it's only a horse, but it was important to her, and it was in our area of responsibility, so we wanted to help her out. So the helicopter came there, and they had already landed, and so we kind of got together and we're thinking about what we should do, and I knew, and when that hiker described where the horse was, I was all like, there's no way we can get there with our horses. I said, there's no trail, it's rough as all get out. You know, trying to get in there with our horses and then get that other horse out, I don't think that's going to be viable. So we kind of came up with the plan that they would take me up in the helicopter, we'd go find the horse, they'd land, I'd get out, I'd catch the horse, and then I'd walk the horse out. And I was like, okay, that's a good plan. So I grabbed a halter out of our trailer and jumped in the helicopter, and we took off. We flew up there and we're flying around the canyon, and didn't take us too long, and I'm like, there he is. I could see, you know, there's this brown horse. He had a black saddle on, and he's just kind of standing out there all by himself in the middle of the canyon. So they found a pretty good spot for me to land that was far enough away to not scare the horse. And so I jumped out, and I thought, man, you know, this could be tough. Like, this horse, man, he might, you know, I didn't know anything about this horse or anything, and so I was thinking this could be tough. Well, that horse kind of saw me. Once the helicopter took off and that horse kind of saw me coming, he came to me. He comes over there and he kind of just put his head right on me and let me put that halter on him, and he almost had this look in his eye where he was all like, get me out of here. He's like, I want to go home. And so he was super easy to catch. Like I say, he came right up to me. And so we'd kind of scouted I've never hiked through that whole canyon myself, but I've been on each end of it a little bit, you know, through the years. And so I didn't know which was the best way to go. So we kind of scouted it out with the helicopter. Well, if I went to the north, back towards Canyon Lake, there are several spots where it's just like huge 10-foot drop-offs. Now you can do it if you're hiking, because you can kind of get down the boulders, but we're like, there's no way I could lead a horse down that. So, and we were probably closer to getting out that way, where we could have came out. There's a pull-off off of milepost 208 on 88, where there's a pull-off there, and you can hike down a trail. It's a pretty good trail down into that canyon, or into that wash, you know, which is called First Water. And I thought if I could get to there, it would be pretty easy to get out, you know, but we had seen those drop-offs, and like, even though it was shorter to go to the north, I'm like, I think I'm just going to go back south and go back towards the First Water trailhead area. And so I just started going, and if you're familiar with this with this wash, there is no trail. It's just boulders, wash, rock, cactus, you know, the brush. And honestly, there were a couple spots we came to where I had to literally climb over boulders to get going, and I was just like, man, I didn't know if this horse could do it. But he was a champ, man. I would just ask him, and he would just do it. Like, somehow he would make it over these boulders and stuff. And he wasn't injured or anything. And anyway, he was a really nice little horse. So we're going along, and when I found him, there were some pieces. Of course, he had his headstall on, you know, the bridle and everything, but a bunch of it was missing, and he was missing one of the stirrups. And as we walked back down the canyon, it was funny, I'd find little pieces of the equipment and I found the stirrup and I put that back and I hooked that back onto the saddle, and I found some of the headstall, and I'd taken the headstall off of him when I put the halter on and just hung it over the horn and kind of tied it on there. And I'd kind of check the saddle too before we took off, make sure there was nothing underneath it, you know, to sore him up or anything. And he was good to go. So I'd found this equipment as we're going along. So I finally came to a spot in the wash where it was straight, just solid rock on one side, straight up, straight, almost solid rock. And then there was the trail, which, if you could call it a trail, went through the middle, but there was about 2 feet of water in there. If you're familiar with the first water area, you know, in the Superstition area, that, you know, this is in the winter time, those washes will always have water in them. And I thought, man, what am I, you know, and so you couldn't go up and around. I mean, it was too steep. The only way through was through that water. And I thought, man, you know, I knew I had quite a few miles to go still. And I thought, I do not want to walk with wet boots. I thought, well, maybe I could just take my boots off and carry them. And then I thought, why don't I just ride him? And so you know, but the story was that this horse had bucked this lady off, right? So, and I was like, is this horse like just barely been trained? Is this horse had like 1 or 2 rides on it? Was this the first time they ever took the horse out into the country to ride it? And that's why it bucked her off and got away. And so it was a calculated risk for sure. And, you know, and not knowing the situation, but, you know, as far as the whole time, he'd never been spooky or he'd just been good. So I took my halter and I threw it up around his neck and I tied him into some reins, and I kind of adjusted the cinch on there and made sure the saddle was good, and I just swung up on him. And I sat there on him and everything was good. And I asked him to, you know, I thought, oh, you know, now I'm going to ask, you know, and sometimes if people are familiar with horses, some horses don't like to go through water, right? And I thought, and I was just ready for a rodeo. I asked this horse to go forward, and man, he just, without hesitation, boom, right through that water, man. And we got out on the other side and it was pretty smooth, and he was at a trot. And we were just, and this horse, he never missed a beat, man. Like, he never stumbled, he never anything. He was just, he's all like, let's go, man. And he didn't offer to buck or spook or anything. So off we're going, right? And so I'm riding him. And now we're making some pretty good time. It got to where the wash was pretty rough again, so I got off of him. I didn't want to ride him over like the big boulders and stuff, but then the elements started creeping in and it started getting dark. And if, you know, there's one thing that I don't like, it is the desert at night, especially the Superstitions. To be perfectly honest, now, like I said, I'm supposed to be a deputy and brave and all this, and I'm carrying a gun and all that, but whew, man, the Superstitions and the desert at night can be spooky. So I'm just like, man, we got to get out of here. So luckily, the helicopter had come back, and they were using their spotlight to spotlight me. And I had a radio with me, and the whole time they were kind of guiding me where to go too. They'd be like, at one time I kind of went to, it looked like the trail went off to the right, and the helicopter's like, no, you'll get cliffed out going that way. So I turned around, and so like I said, this whole rescue was very much a team effort between myself, I guess between our mounted unit and our aviation unit. So I kept going a little ways, and I mean, it was dark. And when I got to where I was around, I think like the Hackleberry Springs area, there was some Boy Scouts there that were camping. And so I stopped and I talked to them, and they gave me some water, and I was able to, you know, drink a little water, get hydrated. And they kind of said, yeah, if you just, and from there, it was not too bad of a trail. And so I got him out. We started going out that way, and we finally got to a trail that I'd been on before, that I'd been on horses before. And so that was like, I was like, okay, you know, we're almost there. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to ride him a little more. And so I just jumped on him, and, you know, it was a nice trail, and we got there and we came out. If you're familiar with the first water area, there's the old corral there with the old tank and the old windmill that's kind of over the hill. And from the main road. And so when I got to that, I knew that, and I knew that landmark, and I'd been there 100 times, so I was feeling pretty good about it. And still, the helicopter was there as I was riding him. They were spotlighting me, and so I could see real good, and I assumed the horse could see real good too, because he never missed a step. And if you're familiar with those trails, they are rough and rocky. So we go up, and from that corral there, it's kind of an old 2-track road, you know, where they used to bring vehicles in there. And so we got up over that hill and came down over that hill. And then we came out, and I radioed in saying, hey, I'm going to be out on the main road. And we had started the whole thing kind of out by 88 and where the first water road starts. And I said, have everyone come into, if you're familiar with that road, there's a big parking lot there for horse trailer parking. I said, you know, come down and have everyone meet all down there at the horse trailer parking, and, you know, tell the owner and everything. And I was talking to my partner who had come with me with the horses. And so I got out on that main road, and I was just going along there, and this horse had been so good, I thought, I wonder if I could just ask him to lope, you know, to canter a little bit. Like, see, so I just kind of squeezed him up, and man, he just picked up this real smooth, you know, lope and gallop, and we were just galloping down the road. And so we come in there, you know, not at full speed, but coming pretty fast. And there were some people there, and I remember this. And so I kind of pulled up on him, and there were these 2 ladies there, and they saw me, and I was in uniform, and they're like, oh, are you here to help find the lost horse? And I said, help find him? I said, this is him. He's found. I rescued him. It's over. And of course, then about that time, the owner showed up, and you know, she was overjoyed, and that you know, the horse was there, and he was okay, and he was safe and everything, and that was that. And so it was just a fun time. I think part of it, you know, it was fun because, you know, that horse wanted to be rescued, and you know, like I say, with a team effort working together there, we were able to get him out of there, and he was fine. So it was a really fun call.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.